had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer and summer.
I was talking about sort of the evolution of how new media was arrived at sort of its final exhibition format, right? So photography comes out in 1840s, whatever, I believe photography was invented. And essentially we've settled on photography being exhibited in galleries and in photo books. And I would argue that I would assume that the gallery came first, and magazines is another way they're exhibited in print. Let's just say print. Galleries was probably the first medium.
Maybe premium photography.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I guess for the normal, probably
right.
social media.
High art or art photography in galleries. And then, probably motivated by commerce. Like, hey, we can sort of make this gallery available to the masses through photography books. And obviously some gallery exhibits tour, they go around the world and tour at different museums or galleries and whatever. So there's ways to try to bring a photographer's work, to larger audiences. Cinema, shown, projected on a sheet in somebody's apartment in France in the late 1800s. And eventually we've settled at multiplexes, independent micro cinemas, a digital projector, film projector showing a movie to an audience, and they're consuming it there.
I would even argue we've progressed to sit on your couch on a Friday night and pull it up on your
and so that's
TV.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm kind of saying, like, photography typically is consumed. High art photography is typically consumed in galleries, in a show, in photography books. And for photography specifically, is YouTube a place to create a new way of exhibiting that material? The way, where the artists themselves, just like they do at a gallery, working with the gallery staff or the museum staff, a curator, whatever, like coming up with the show, right? Is there an opportunity for photographers to use medium as a way to exhibit the work?
Use YouTube as the medium.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's maybe they have a gallery, maybe they have a photo book or a zine and the YouTube video of their photos.
So let me just, playing devil's advocate really quickly. Do you think you're trying to square peg round hole YouTube in photography because there's these two things that you are in love with right now, and you're like, these can work together? I know they can. I just have this feeling. Like, do you think there's a case to be made for YouTube just not being the proper...
I think so. Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. But I don't know if we know
evolution.
That yet. And that's the thing.
And that's what I'm almost like argue, because, and I'm not saying this from a negative. I'm saying,
no, yeah.
I want to hear it. Give me your argument as to what we feel like it could be.
The only argument I have right now, this is just all
this is
super fresh.
This is a pretty fresh.
Is I see a finished piece in my mind that has photography, my photography in it, like edited, sequenced photos, like very intentional what I'm choosing. In honestly a sort of mixed media thing where there's a video, still videos, some kind of video component to it, possibly music, or most likely music, sound effects, that there's a... and you could argue, well, that's not really photography. To me, the centerpiece of that piece of art is the photography. Like, that is the thing that I want the audience to connect to most. And I'm using video, sound, music to support that, just like you would a film, right? Yeah. Silent film, then they added in dialogue, then they added in score.
There's a film where it's almost like... So Joel Meyerowitz has this quote about like a novel, a photographic novel.
Yeah.
And I always was fascinated with that idea. Basically, it's, you're telling a narrative through photographs that are taken at random, incidents. Yeah. And in a way, I think, a similar, format of that is the the John Wilson thing I recommended, but
Yeah.
there's this movie, and I can't think of it right now. It's like 30 minutes to an hour long, and it's a film about time travel and like this person and the last moment of their life, and it's essentially a photographic essay.
Yeah.
And it's so impressive, and it's done as a movie. There's sound effects, and you've got kind of this like Ken Burns style thing, but it's all photographs. Everything is photographs. So it's like where in a traditional film you would have you'd have different shots, but it's just photograph, and it's creating this narrative. It's really interesting, and that's what comes to mind when you're.
And I think I think even Ken Burns, there's an argument that so much of those documentaries is a photo book that you're watching. That's not the top level thing that it is. It's obviously a film first, a documentary first, because it has interviews and it has filmed interviews, all that. But there's a strong photo element, because usually he's choosing subject matter where they don't want to do reenactments. And it's historical nature, right? It's baseball. It's, but there's of course
country
archival
music,
footage, country music, all that. So you're heavily dependent on photos.
Yeah.
Now, the risk here is, and just like any kind of type of mixed media photo book, you have some photo books that try to do too much, or they're combining photos with poetry or other writing or other stuff, and it can come off as, I think, it's off center of the truth. It's pretentious, and I think this could be the same thing. The thing I can compare it to is almost like visual tone poems, where somebody does like a weird voiceover, and then there's like weird video footage, and maybe someone has a photo in there. Like, I'm sure there's stuff out there that's evocative of what I'm thinking, but it doesn't feel right. It feels artificial or pretentious or just not the truth. And I'm wondering, because I see something in my mind that I want to watch. Like, I see the video I see in my mind is something that I want to start watching on YouTube.
Well,
and so I'm trying to figure
would you
out
feel comfortable sharing like the kind of what that moment, because I think we talked about it a little in the porch, right? Would you feel comfortable sharing like what that idea is or where that came from?
So on my photography channel, I've been kind of making these hybrids between what you would maybe normally see with a photographer that does a photo walk with like a GoPro POV, or someone's filming them take the photos and then they're showing the photos that they took. Maybe some of the photos that they took, they leave out. It's out of focus. It's underexposed, overexposed, whatever. It's just not a very good photo. And there is some editing or sequencing that's going on. I wanted to take the YouTuber out of the equation and just put together video, still images, the photos that I took, kind of weird music, tonal, atmospheric music, and then the sound effects, the ambient sound effects of the environment where the photos were taken. And I kind of watch them and I enjoy them. I like them. I'm like, this. I saw this and it works. But part of me is going, I still don't think this is the work.
Yeah.
It feels like a hybrid between a little bit of the work, but a little bit of like the look behind the curtain at the YouTuber making the work.
Yeah.
And so I was at my house, and I have all kinds of struggles with control and order and things being very neat and organized in my home.
Right.
And my wife,
I don't relate.
You don't. My wife doesn't work like that.
I don't relate.
And my 7-year-old and 4-year-old, certainly don't. But when you have kids and there's birthdays and there's Christmas, your house fills up very quickly with tons of stuff. And you have tools for the kids, and you have tools for your YouTube work, and you have tools for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Just to, tools in the garage. I mean, just so much stuff that you have to amass to run a household. And then on top of it, the stuff that you amass because you're self-medicating, or you're filling a hole by buying shit, or you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, whatever it is. And so I am starting to get overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in our house. And I'm also getting overwhelmed by the disarray that sometimes happens at the end of the day or throughout the day while kids are playing, or your wife's making lunch and dishes and all this stuff. Okay. So I had just acquired a Ricoh GR Digital, the original 8.1 megapixel CCD camera, and the stuff everywhere was overwhelming me in the moment. And I'm looking at all of it, and I sat there and had this epiphany or this realization. And I said, maybe what you need to do is you need to take these feelings and what you're seeing and turn it into work. You need to come up with some kind of video, mixed media, photo thing. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And you need to capture this because this is something that you deal with a lot. It sometimes elicits behavior in you that you don't like, impatience, irritability, frustration, and it eats at you. So how can you turn it into a positive?
Yeah.
How can you see the towels all clumped up on the shower stall or the toys on the living room floor, the stuff on the kitchen table, and tell that story in whatever way you're going to by taking photos and video. And so I started taking a bunch of photographs, and they're low light and messy and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's the way it has to be. I started getting some video clips. A storm came in that night, and through the picture window, you could see the lightning and the clouds moving in. And I'm like, I don't know, that speaks to me in relationship to what I'm experiencing with all this crap in my house. So I'm going to prop my iPhone up. I'm like, I don't even care if it's a good camera. I'm going to prop my iPhone up and just let it roll. And then my kids were talking, and I'm like, there's something about like their child voices that makes me feel like maybe that could work in this. So I started recording them just kind of talking whatever they are saying. And I'm just going to amass this big pile of stuff that to me seems connected to that emotional state and whatever I'm dealing with. And I'm going to try to turn it into to work. I'm going to turn it into something. And the last thing I'll say about it was, we talked about this in another video, titling your work. Well, I don't want to title all the photographs, but I think this piece of work needs to have a title.
Yeah.
And I was reading an article in the New Yorker, and this word popped up, and it was replete, REPLETE. And I looked up the meaning, and I was like, that's it. That's what this is. Our house is replete with all this shit.
Yeah.
And it's driving me crazy. And so that word speaks to me. So right now, that's the working title for this project, and I am going to make that work.
Yeah. See it through to the end.
Yeah. So I have
make
probably,
sure. Yeah. And I mean, you don't need to release it. That's the great thing about.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what it is.
I don't think doing, truly doing work it's not an external relationship, right? It's something inside, and as long as you're doing it, doesn't matter if you're, and it's great to release it.
But I also know it's the work because I am not impatient about getting it done so I can release it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're on the right track. I think you just keep going with it. And if you get to a point where you have something and you say, I want to release it, I would almost say, and this is just me thinking right now, but I would almost say, put it on your main channel.
Maybe.
And, and just maybe, I don't know how you approach that. Maybe just because you don't want to add because then you're YouTubeifying it. If you add an intro.
Yeah, right.
But maybe, in the title description, you're just like, hey, this is what happens. Or you put a post up in your feed or something like that. And then in the description, you say, go to my feed for the full story. But I think that would be the challenge too, because then and it's interesting because it's like, what game are we playing? But who knows? Then you're giving it an audience,
right? And
you're letting it live in the world, and you're kicking back at that notion a little bit that your audience dictates your livelihood, or your livelihood dictates your work.
Right.
I think that could be a healthy exercise.
Yeah. I don't know what the correct path is for exhibiting it. My instinct is to put it on my photography channel because it feels like a natural extension of
that was my
I'm
first
creating.
thought too. And then I was like, this is interesting because.
But I think I know that I'm gonna really take my time with it, not rush it. I may even show it to people and just see what the reaction is. So, without going down another rabbit hole, when I was at home for 4th of July, my brother, who, cuts grass during the day and then toils in his home studio on an old iMac making these 3D animated films. And he had like 20 minutes of like not finished, but like a 75% there, needed some extra dialogue, scoring, whatever. And he showed this thing, and he's testing the waters. He's seeing what the reaction is when people watch this thing for 20 minutes. And I watch this thing and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like it makes sense knowing my brother. I don't know what it is. I couldn't not watch it. And I watched the whole thing, and it felt like 5 minutes went by and it was done. And I'm like, I wouldn't hate watching it again. Now I'm biased. It's my brother. I love him. I'm supportive. You could watch it and be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Then he showed it to my niece and nephew. And my niece literally watched it in silence. She's, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, 10, 11 years old. Watched it in silence the whole way through. And my brother went, I know I've got something, because she didn't disconnect from it the entire time. And even if it only gets 5,000 views or, whatever, because who know, or it goes crazy when he finally releases it, and he intends to on YouTube on a dedicated channel.
Or he does. I think that's something that, I don't think, maybe it's a personal thing, but I almost want to step in and be like, or if he doesn't release it, Vivian Mayer worked her entire life.
Right.
Does it discredit the work she was doing because they were in a box?
Yeah.
I would argue it doesn't. I know we've had that exact discussion on this, on this podcast before, but it's like, the work is it's between you and yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then it's always great to put it out into the world.
Sure.
And, then you can do more. You can move to another thing. But I'm sure there's other people out there that, toil at a craft every day and don't have a public display of that.
Sure.
And I don't think that takes away from it.
Not at all. Especially if that's their truth. If their truth is, I don't want to share this.
Yeah.
I don't know what the end result will be of the work that I've done, but it's not in me.
And you're just doing it because of it's giving you something internally.
Yeah.
And I think that's the metric that differentiates it is, when you're checking that box.
Now, this is related. We touched on something. I held the thought in my head, and I want to just touch on it, sort of like why YouTube?
Yeah.
There is something that draws me to YouTube. I don't know if it's empowerment, if it's easy, it's the path of least resistance. I don't know what it is. But when I think about creating a body of work in photography, and let's say I've referenced this fireworks project, I had an impulse during fireworks season, which in Iowa and Nebraska, this part of the Midwest where fireworks are legal for a small period of time because they're big money. There are these fireworks tents that pop up all over the place in grocery store parking lots, in empty lots, and all over, literally everywhere. And there are
everywhere.
People that like these seasonal workers that I don't know if they own the tent, if they're employed by somebody who owns it. I don't know what the story, but I have endless curiosity about the people. And there is something fascinating to me about that time of year when everywhere you drive, you see these like circus tents filled with fireworks. And I was like, I want to photograph these. I want to go to each one and have this wide angle shot that just photographs the scene where this fireworks tent is. Yeah. And then in a perfect world, I would go into the fireworks tent, talk to the people inside, sort of earn their surface trust to say, can I take your photograph? And have that be a project. Yeah. Have that be the work. And if I made a zine out of it, a photo book, a video on YouTube, I think about like trying to present it to a gallery, because again, that's sort of like in my mind, that is the high mark of exhibiting your photography work, is that a gallery or a museum or someplace in New York or whatever goes, holy shit, this is like the world needs to see this. Yeah. Or this area needs to see this, whatever. that to me seems incredibly inaccessible, and there's contracts, I'm sure, and co-ownership, or if they charge admission, all that stuff. And that's even assuming that they would like my work.
Yeah.
I love the idea of making a finished piece, a digital photo gallery, a photo video, which is what my channel's called, whatever it is, and just putting it out there and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
And if it catches on,
it's the lack of direct gatekeepers.
Yeah, there's something about, in my channel, I have some views on my channel, videos that have over 2,000 views, and I've, in 3 months gotten 120 subscribers. I think two or three came on today, and to me, there's an indication there that something is connecting with the right people.
Yeah.
Now, if I was in the video, hey, I'm at, this is the thing, I shot Portrait 400 here in this cool neighborhood in Omaha, and this morning light and all this stuff, I could have 1,000 subscribers.
You might do, now. It might do better.
Yeah. But I'm okay with me, because my vision of the work, even if it's a kind of hybrid teaching or whatever.
Well, we talked about it. It's almost is it a
plus it's a lot more work to make them when you're in.
Oh, it's tough. But it could be, what you're doing right now could almost be a prerequisite to the work, right?
Yeah.
It could be a prerequisite to where you're doing the process of what you're doing right now, but you're not doing it with a video in mind.
Yeah.
And you're doing it, 30 different times over 2 years, and you're making a trip and you're just cataloging it. And then, you sit down when it's all said and done and you turn it into this project. It's like, well, this was, 30 trips here, and I was in a different emotional state every time. And, on this one, my daughter was sick while I was gone. I was worried the whole time, and I was photographing, maybe how did that work its way into the work?
Sure.
Or this time, we had a tornado and it was crazy, and, the whole town shut down the next day, and I was there in a motel, and how did that influence it? Or I was driving up and the truck broke down, and how did that, and then all of that builds on itself. And I think, but to get to that point, you have to have a starting point.
Yeah.
And that you're doing that right now, and you're getting the vision and you're refining it already. You're already starting to figure out oh, well, this is great, but I see something even better. How do I get to that? And so I'm interested to see how I think I'm interested to see how that journey plays out.
Yeah.
Because you have the gut feeling of I'm not doing the work, but I'm close, kind of, and you're going to find it eventually if you keep an open mind and you keep challenging yourself.
And there's something too about, and this is very, this is part of what I don't like about why I'm drawn to photography and these sort of mixed media photo videos that I'm conceiving of. They're sometimes I feel like a bit of a compromise. Sometimes I sit there and think about the video I just talked about making about my house being messy and it driving me crazy. And I think that's at the top of the pyramid of the things I want to make right now, because that's the only way I can express how I'm feeling. That's it. It's not a script. It's not a poem. It's not a sculpture. It's not a painting. It is that thing that I see in my mind, versus the documentary with Ted Snow. Part of the thing in my head that makes that inaccessible to me right now is the sheer quantity of work that would go in to making anywhere from a 10 to 30 minute documentary out of all of that material.
Yeah.
And I think I sit there and go, that is such a massive undertaking that once I start it, it's going to be so all-consuming that I'm going to want to set aside the stuff that earns me money and helps me pay my bills and support my family until I get it done. Even if it's a vomit draft or a polished draft. And so I'm almost resisting working on it because of that thing
it's funny,
I put
you
in my
said
head.
resisting, and literally the thing that came to mind when you're describing that is that I think I even got you ordered a copy of this a couple of years ago, or I sent you, I don't remember, but The War of Art, the Stephen
Yeah.
Pressfield book,
Yeah.
where he talks about the resistance.
Yeah.
You know, you have this thing that you're supposed to be doing, and how do you know it's what you're supposed to be doing? Because when you're not doing it, you feel like disgusted, which I think we would, you know, in this aptly defined in this episode as the work. And when you're not doing it, and like whenever you want to be doing that thing, everything conspires to make you not do that thing.
Yeah.
At all. Like that's just the nature of the beast, right?
Yep.
You have a thing that you're supposed to be doing. Everything in the world is conspiring to keep you from doing that. And it's interesting because you mentioned this, you know, you feel like kind of what you're doing right now is almost this quasi work.
Yes. Yep.
And, you know, I don't necessarily know if the Ted Snow thing is like the thing, but maybe that is the thing for you. Like you've expressed to me a couple of times that you do feel like that is the thing.
Yep.
And it's like, is almost, you know, you're like, oh, I'm going to start another channel. I'm going to do this. Is that the resistance kind of hitting you, pulling you away and being like, yeah, no, this is work too. This is very important stuff.
Yep.
And then you're, you know, you should be doing that thing. And when you shift and you start doing, you know, like the firework project or this or that, is that going to be suddenly is something else going to come in and be like, yeah, well, I mean, that's going to be, I've got like 3,000 photographs. There's no way if I sit down and I go through those photographs, I'm just going to take away time from this and this and this. So it's like, where do you draw the line?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
I'm saying this as somebody who
100%.
struggles with this myself.
And I want to get into your point of view on this with your work and not work. The thing for me is I feel like I'm drawn to, because you could argue everything I've done on this second channel, all the photography excursions I've done, all that time that I spent doing that, if you had put all that time towards Ted Snow, it's possible that you could be done with it by now. The thing with the other stuff is they're all these little it's like I'm trying to think of what this is. They're all these bite-sized completed projects that start to finish for me to go out and shoot and to have a finished photo video for my second channel. The total time commitment from the idea I have of what I'm going to photograph and take video of to the finished thing is maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.5, 3 at most.
Yeah.
If I took on Ted Snow right now, and I know this about myself.
2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months.
If.
And my thing is, I get so obsessed and consumed with it that I cannot do anything else until it's done. And I don't mean like the finished thing that's going to exhibit in a film festival or whatever, but I mean even if it's just what I think is a solid draft, and that means there's music, there's voiceover if we had to record it, there's I know what extra footage I need to get. I need to go film that footage and get it, even if it's like me getting some just establishing shots around Council Bluffs that I can just do by myself. I'm going to have something that feels like a finished film, even if it needs more work. Yeah. But and it'll take me 2 to 3 months. Yeah. And I will set aside the stuff that makes me money. I won't reply to emails in a timely manner for brand deals and all the stuff with my channel. And I will, at least this is my fear, I will damage what I've worked so hard to create to make this big fucking thing in a short documentary. Well,
so you're perfectly describing what I've, been essentially battling with for the last, personally for the last couple of years, to where I had these projects that I, were this bigger thing, and I was, you put off making progress on them, and you almost say to yourself, I have to do this in spurts, or I'm not going to make any. This just has to be one big effort, gargantuan effort. And then it never because it's almost, I almost liken it to, you go to the gym to work out. Yep. And you're like, I just want to lose weight. And what do everybody that's like, oh, I want to, get in better shape or whatever. They say, all right, commit to 5 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just put your shoes on, show up, and go home.
Build.
And, you know, do that for a year, and suddenly you're the person who, you know, goes to the gym every day or whatever. And I was always the person who would be like, I'm going to get in better shape. And then you go for 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then you don't go for a year. Mm-hmm. And that was my relationship to the work, or the, you know, to the things that I felt like I wanted to be doing for a long time, until I finally just got in this mindset. And I don't even know if this is permanent, but this is where I am right now. And I've been in there for enough time to feel comfortable, you know, expressing it. But just sit down, you know, every morning you can, and, you know, try to get an hour in. If something else comes up or whatever, you know, just try to get some words down, for the, like, the thing, like writing, try to get some words down. Photographing, you know, try to make a step forward. Mm-hmm. It's almost not setting some gargantuan expectation on it. And I wake up, it's Tuesday, and I don't sit down to write, and I can't kill myself over that. But I also can't look at Wednesday and be like, well, you missed yesterday. You know, it's just get back down there. You know, you gotta take a step, get half a page, get a page. Yep. Sometimes you get 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 mm-hmm. pages, and you're like, oh man, this is, and then, you know, you come back 2 days later, you're like, oh, that was shit. We got to go back and do it. And for the first time though, I feel like I've made progress in writing, and the progress hasn't been made in photography, because like the project I am passionate about right now that I want to see through it's in Nashville, and I just haven't made the effort to, you know, book the plane ticket, figure out the logistics, and I'm just playing it up as this hard thing. And really,
what for you are the forces that are playing upon that?
Yeah.
What, like, you know, is it, you know, I've got to work, I've got a 9-to-5 job in a sense.
I don't want to make the financial commitment, or I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to, what if something comes up that weekend, or what if I need to do this, or when in reality, it's just like, book it, get it on the schedule, and like, go.
Does
work for it. It's just like this, you know, it's just get a page. Yeah. Get 2 pages, or, you know, like just sit down and record an episode, with like the and that usually builds momentum. And like with Ted Snow, you know, it's like, would it be in that case, maybe it's like sit down and edit for 30 minutes. Yeah. And then sit back down tomorrow and edit for 30 more minutes. And then you miss 2 days. And then you sit down Friday and you edit for 30 minutes. And it's like, you put in an hour and a half of editing that week. It's like, you know, that's almost the way that I have to look at it, because I very much, I mean, I think we just think similar in a lot of ways in terms of, I build it up as this huge boogeyman in my head, right? And that's scary, and you just avoid it at all costs. And then every time I make a lot of progress with something, it's just because I got into that habit of show up consistently. And plus, I talked to you earlier about when we were outside and we were talking, I was telling you, and we got to wrap up pretty soon, because we're at like an hour 5 without the extra stuff. But I basically said, like, the work is just, it's a collection of moments over time, but it's that funneled through a specific medium and then distilled down to its essence. And then that creates something new. Mm-hmm. And you can scrapbook that whole process, and like, that's, you know, we have secondary or whatever, but I used to look at it as like, you have to sit down and create this thing. And then especially like with the project I'm working on right now, with the film I'm working on right now, it's like you sit down and sometimes you're like, I can't really, nothing's coming to mind right now. Mm-hmm. And you move to something else and work on it for a little bit. And then you see something and you add that experience in. Maybe you read something in a book, or you hear somebody say something, you see something in a movie, and it inspires some connection, and then that connection goes into the work. And instead of just this culmination of like 3 days of intense effort, but it's pretty singular in its thinking, you have this great collage of the last 12 months worth of experiences, and it fits into this new entity almost. And then once you carve it down, it becomes something else entirely. So it's this collection of little ideas that have come to you and have been, expanded upon for 12 months or whatever. And then you take that and distill it, and it becomes its own new idea.
Yeah.
And I think the same happens with photography, right? You go out and you can just like shoot, and you shoot and you shoot and you shoot and you shoot and you shoot. And every day there's something, like we talked about the motel project or something, like there's something slightly influencing you every time.
Yeah.
Then when you come back and you look at all the work, suddenly it's like, wow, look at all these weird connections, and look at all, and then it comes together. And I think right now that's how I look at the work, or that's how I look at the process. And who knows, that might change,
Yeah.
I can never say it's for sure, but right now that's kind of my thinking on it.
So as we wind down, this is a little bit more for me and maybe for the audience as well. You have the stuff that you're doing, just like me. I have my YouTube channel that teaches Final Cut Pro and talks about filmmaking and what hard drives you should use and all that stuff, right? And that's sort of like the thing that I compare to being like the university teacher that's teaching, writing, creative writing or poetry or screenwriting or whatever. And then there's the work. So for you, I know you have a 9-to-5 job and you are working in advertising, marketing, and you have your YouTube channel. What for you is the work, and what is like the sort of order of importance to you, whether it's a short film, a photography project, a book or a screenplay, whatever you're writing, like what ways does the work, what format does the work embody, and what's like the order of importance to you in that work?
So like, if you're asking like, what am I working on right now? And this has pretty much been the story for the last, 18 months, I'd say, or more. But there's one feature project.
A feature screenplay?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's, and you don't, my thing is always don't talk about it, because if you talk about it, then it's like out there. And there's an external expectation that's applied. Yeah. But there's the feature screenplay. There's several, short stories that you see through to fruition. It's more of an exercise, and sometimes maybe it works into the piece.
But this would be fiction writing, prose.
Yeah, prose. I wouldn't call it prose.
Well,
no.
It's not.
But and then, so that obviously you finish that would turn into the production of the film. You change hats. Yep. But I'm at the point where it's not a financial thing. It's not like I gotta get this done. Sorry. It's just something that I'm interested in, and it's this culmination of all these different things. So I am treating it as just, when it's done, it's done. Right. And we're going to get there eventually. And, there are external motivations that have been applied in certain aspects, and it's like, that just always doesn't feel like a good thing. Yeah. So there's that. And then there's also, the short story. And then there's a photography project, which is, undefined, but the screenplay is related to Nashville, and the project is related to Nashville. Okay. They're not the same. Right. But the idea, the inspiration was the same. Okay. And I think the questions in myself that I'm trying to answer are the same. But there's a broad range of them. And so each one is just, helping me explore that right now. And when they finish, they'll be finished. And, I'm open to other projects. It's not like those, but like that's my North Star right now. Yeah. And I think that's why, there's certain choices I'll make with, the day job or, doing whatever, where it's like, as long as I'm making progress on those things, and then obviously, you know, there's a lot of other things that come, but yeah, that's the North Star. That's the guiding. I also try to keep it, I don't let too much stuff pile up on my plate.
Yeah.
Because I just can't, you know.
I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
Do this, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
And that's on the work side.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not writing 5 screenplays, you don't have 6 short stories, you don't have 7 photo
there's
projects.
One. Yeah. Right. And then there's one photo project.
Yep.
And then, you know, I love to go out and take photos.
Yes.
And like sometimes like that's more of its own thing. Mm-hmm. But I like to treat projects as projects. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I get the idea for, I could write something about this or about this and about this. And usually when that happens to me, I'm like, yeah, you have to almost, okay, does this, you know, I think this is interesting. What do I think is interesting about this? Once I identify that, and we had like one of those moments earlier where I was like, this is what I think is interesting about this. I'm writing to figure it out. And then once I identify that, I'm like, okay, does this work into a scene that, you know, is kind of a progression of where I am right now? And if it's not, you have to just throw it away.
Yep.
You know, write it down, put it somewhere. You can come back to it later. But I mean, that was something I did when I was younger. Is I would just new project. It's like you have 53 projects going, like,
and that's
and you're gonna finish none of them.
That's a classic thing, especially with writing, and I'm sure other disciplines. Yeah. But you know, the exciting part. The beginning of a project is always sort of the most exciting, thrilling, fulfilling, whatever. And then you hit a roadblock where things get difficult. You're not sure what to go. Most people, this is the war of art as well, but most people, you know, the disciplined, trained writers, experienced writers push through that.
Yeah,
and
you just have
get
to sit
through.
down.
Others abandon it and move on to something else.
And
I've certainly done that in my past and could do that on my photography journey.
Yeah, I don't think you will, but
no,
like where I am in both of the things right now, we're just deep in the throes.
Yeah,
and it's not, you know, there's nothing exciting about it.
Yeah,
it's just sit down and do it. And if I continue to put on the shoes every day, eventually we'll be at a point where it's like, okay, this is, you know, it's at a finished point, or it's at least at a point to share, and then you know, you add another layer.
One last question. How do you feel about how the work is going when it comes to the screenplay, the short stories, and the photography? If you had a sort of like, you know, screenplay, love it. I'm doing you know, I'm you know, like.
I mean, it's, you know, I feel satisfied. I'm in a good place, I think. Like I can't say, like, you know, I'm not sitting here thinking like this is going to be the greatest film of all time.
But you're also
this film is going to make me.
I could just like bankroll a bunch of money from this job, like in 6 months, I can quit, and then I'm going to just get this script. I'm going to write it. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to get it out there. I have some contact. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
no, because that's not. I don't know. Maybe that's bad.
I don't. I'm basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find comparison to what my perception is of
and that
the work,
you know,
I'm
doing. This hasn't been the case the whole time, but no, I'm at peace with it for once in my life, almost to where, you know, we have this serves serves a want. I can make a YouTube channel or a video for the YouTube channel if I want to.
Right.
I have things that I enjoy doing. You know, I have hobbies. I have things that my wife and I do, and you know, we have our dog and trying new things. You know, I'm financially fine. You know, I'm not, you know, struggling, but with that comes a trade-off.
Right.
Obviously.
Yep.
But you don't. And every once in a while, you know, I get it like, oh, you try to do like a retail therapy type thing or something, and more and more I'm catching myself. And but no, I don't feel. You know, every day I try to read a little bit. I watch films whenever I get the opportunity. I mean, you know, kind of my reading habits and I'm always like listening and
watch. Yeah, and
just I'm constantly kind of taking stuff in.
Yep.
And, you know, it's almost this therapy. I mean, really the writing of the screenplay has kind of become like the podcast in a way.
Yeah.
And I'd never had that relationship. It was always its own thing. And I feel it. I mean, you know, it's like I could work on it for 5 hours a day, but would I get any more enjoyment out of it?
Right.
No, I'd probably just burn out.
And see, the thing for me is there is something in me that feels very impatient and very pressured.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we've talked about this in previous, and let's not open up this whole big other thing, but, you know, for me, for the most part,
This is a cliffhanger for the next episode.
I just feel like I'm behind.
Next week, same bat time.
And this could go to another conversation we might have about, you know, culturally how, you know,
And
in America,
I understand that
get
on the feeling like you're behind, because I've felt that before.
And I even felt that when I was your age and I was in LA writing screenplays.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like I was in a race to like get this financial burden lifted of student loans and being broke. And, you know, we're not broke right now, but I don't like that I still have my student loans. I don't like that, you know, we owe on a car. I don't like that I have an 18-year-old Mazda. I don't like that, you know, certain things that pop up financially, although we can pay for it, it feels like a setback in saving for retirement. All this stuff that starts creeping in major ways when you're 44. And also I keep jumping from thing to thing. I went to acting school. Then I went to screenwriting school. Then I moved to Omaha and I started, you know, filmmaking and corporate video. And I kind of did some documentary stuff, but now I'm doing photography, like all this stuff. And I don't, you know, and yes, there's success with the YouTube channel, but it's still like the revenue isn't there for me to like feel like I can breathe a little bit and have a little bit.
You're still fighting.
Yeah, there's still a fight, and there's still pressure and impatience to like, I don't know. Alex Oath talked about like, and people have talked about like getting a piece of work out there that has an impact or has significance or like, you know, when he released his photography book on his adventures down the Mississippi and the photography that he took, like it changed his life. People knew him. They wanted to get in on it. They wanted to exhibit his work, you know, like it opened up his world into going into that path even more in a good way. And I'm sure there's, you know, some negatives to it, pressure and, you know, living up to that work, whatever. I'm like,
you gotta,
like I want, like I
see. I feel
you
like
know, and I keep all those forces keep putting me in a place where I'm just like unsettled all the time.
Yeah, I totally understand that too, but I think, at least in my two of the things that kind of, because I felt that where, you know, there's this constant push, and I don't so much right now. And who knows? You know, I can't speak for myself in 6 months. I can't speak for myself in a year, but I don't so much right now. And they were killing me too. I'm like,
the reflection.
Be still. I don't feel that so much right now, and I think part of it might be that there's. Hi, Doug.
Hey, puppy. It's dinner time, Dad. Come on, wrap it up.
Your camera. Get out of here.
Hungry.
I think part of it, the reason that I don't is because, one, with what we're talking about with the work, you can't look at it as a means to an end. Yeah. So the work can't, like in the example you just gave with Soth, like it changed his life. Like those are great stories to listen to. Yeah. But if you take that for what it is and you try to project that onto your own narrative, then suddenly the work is a means to get that security. Yeah. And you have to, the relationship for the work to be honest, for the work to really express. And this is just an opinion, but I think the work is the end. Yeah. And then it's also, you know, similar to the Jim Carrey quote, where it's like you could try your whole life and have it taken away. It's like, this is my twist on that almost. It's like, I could, you know, spend my whole time, you know, trying to build something and, you know, just constantly just like, oh, well, once you make it, you can breathe. Once you make it, you can breathe. And make it, right? Yeah. And I might never make it. So I might as well, I can control that I just breathe now. Yeah. I can't control if I'm going to make it or not. Yep. All I can do is control my state right now. So if I just sit here and enjoy sitting down at the typewriter in the morning and clacking away and my insignificant, whatever.
Yep.
It's like, I'm getting that right now. I'm getting that joy.
Yeah.
And I can't control if it's going to turn into a great film, or if it's going to turn into a great script, or if it's going to even be worth anything when I'm done with it. But I'm not focused on that. And at one point I think I was, and then the work never got done.
Yep.
So I had, it was just like, eventually I was like, I got to change some thinking on this. And I started digging deeper, and I was like, look, you can just breathe right now, or you can keep holding your breath and be like, as soon as I make it, then I'll breathe. Yeah. And it's like, well, what if you never make it? Then you just wasted your whole life, and you never breathe, like took a deep breath.
Well, and I think that point about if you're creating the work because you think it's going to be this thing that gives you that space, that gives you that takes some of the anxiety away, it takes some of the financial uncertainty, all that stuff. The work, you're not doing the work for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And then it makes me wonder, as we've talked about in the past a little bit, about like ego death and ego making you make pretentious work, and like creating work that you think makes you look like you're an artist, or will impress this person that you want to impress. If your ego is the thing that's driving you towards wanting to control your life to where you don't have fears, anxieties, you feel like you're ahead in the race, you've got savings, you've got your whatever, the in-laws like, hey, we think you're doing great.
Yeah.
Like you've done a good job. Like
you're successful.
You're successful,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Then are you just, and is my life an indication of me just testing all these different things that I gravitate towards, these different ways of sort of winning the lottery? Well, I'll be an actor and I'll get discovered and I'll be famous and I'll have money and I'll get to be this, I'll have all this stuff taken care of. Or I'll have made something significant. Well, that didn't work. I'm going to do screenwriting. I'll sell a screenplay. My name will be on the screen. People will see that I did something impressive, that I'm special, that I'm significant, that I have money, that I have all these things, that I'm keeping up with what society expects of me. And now, okay, well, that didn't work out. Now you're going to, punch the clock and be a post-production supervisor and pay down your credit card debt from your time in LA. And you're going to then set the stage for you to try a new thing. Yeah. And that new thing is YouTube. Yeah. And you've got some success there, but it's not quite enough. Yeah. So you're going to keep that channel going, and now you're going to branch off into something else with photography, because you're watching all this photography stuff. You see this photographer got successful. They have all the things that you want. Now you're trying to figure out how to... I don't think
it's that selfish in your case. Like, I think photography, like, you just have a genuine interest. It's clear when you talk about it.
Yeah.
There's not, either if there is, you're doing a really good job. The acting school paid off.
Right. Like, this is your best acting job ever, is convincing everybody that you genuinely.
Like photography. No, I think everything builds up, but it's all about the perspective, right? And I think the biggest thing is just realizing that every day we're here, it's a good day.
Yeah.
And don't throw that away for some grand vision of the future, because this might be the grand vision of the future. Yeah. And you're going to get to some point in the future and look back as the grand nostalgic, beauty of the past. Yep. And, it's going to be nostalgic then, but why not make it nostalgic now and just, take it in and get lost in it a little bit and play around, and whatever happens. Maybe, eventually your channel blows up and you have 1 million subscribers, and you're,
I made it,
because
Alex.
of that, somebody buys all your screenplays. Like, everything could work out. And then in the same case, everything might not, you might just, you could have 50,000 subscribers. Yeah. Does that change your worth as a person at all?
Right.
No. You're like, we're still sitting and having conversations, and I don't want to see, you constantly feeling like you're missing something because you keep chasing, and you're like, oh, well, I made 16 Apple videos last year. Yeah. And, I only got 5,000 subs out of it, or 10,000 subs out of it. well, make, 3 Apple videos, and I want to see your fireworks project.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I think you kind of feel that way a little bit too, because I just think you caught the bug. Like, I think photography is like a bug, and it ripped it, like, just bit you, and
Well, and I think the foundation of all that has just been just this endless curiosity and wanting to explore all that stuff. And photography is a tool to connect with other people and hear their story, and sort of like look beyond the surface of things and see what's going on underneath.
Yeah.
I keep accessing that stuff with different ways, photography or documentary film or screenwriting.
And ironically, everything in your life is informed.
Yeah.
The photography.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could understand why I have to feel so impatient about all these metrics of success in life.
I really think I think we're almost brainwashed to feel that way. That's just part of being an American in a lot of ways, unfortunately.
I see this in my brother too, and I feel like part of it too is there's some illusion, a mirage that makes me think if I get all that stuff taken care of, then I can do the work completely unencumbered. Mm-hmm. There's some freedom that I fantasize.
It's the control
about
freak.
having.
It's the same reason that we like to have everything orderly. Well,
it's the same thing with the Ted Snow project. If I could sign a couple brand deals and I had $30,000 in the bank in my business account, I could feel like it's okay to take a month off and just edit the rough draft of that video, and I wouldn't lose a moment of sleep going, am I falling behind financially, or like turning off the brands I'm working with and all that
It's
stuff.
funny too though, because there's somebody somewhere that's thinking their dream scenario is being in your exact scenario right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Dude, you don't even know. If I had 27,000 subs in a channel like that, and I had, a wife and 2 kids and a house, blah, 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 like, you're living the dream, dude, and you don't even know it.
Yeah. And
100%.
I think that's the biggest thing is like, I don't know, like, with the control issues and everything, I think the biggest lesson that I'm trying to learn is just to control what you can control.
Yeah.
And it happened today.
Which is everything. I want to control everything.
I can control the world. It happened today, like, and we got to end soon because these cameras are about to die. But it happened today where I got flustered and like, the ocean got a little bumpy and I was like, oh, and like you talked me down. And I mean, it's just, but control what you can control and let the rest happen. And then, hopefully over time we all get better at dealing with that rough water. And that's kind of, I don't know.
So here's what I can control. I can control doing the work.
Absolutely.
And so
sitting down, whatever that means.
If anything,
Matt's going to come back next week.
I can't
edited an hour and a half of Ted Snow.
I can't
suck it.
I can't like make my family keep the house the way I want it to. I can't make the audience make every video a viral sensation. I can't do I can't control any of that.
I think that was you had that recognition unconsciously where you were just like, I think I need to take photos of this.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was you realizing you're like, this control is killing me. And then you were like, but I can photograph it.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's,
And that's what's
coming.
That's
next. Where we end the episode.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.